My name is Miranda. I'm 34 years old and I work as a marketing executive in Boston. My husband Ethan and I spent 18 months planning and saving for our 5-year anniversary trip to Italy. Then my sister, Heather, 36, dropped a bombshell. She expected me to cancel our $7,000 international trip with just 3 weeks' notice to babysit her 3 kids, Emma, 7, Noah, 5, and Lily, 2. When I refused, my entire family labeled me heartless and selfish for not understanding family priorities. Stay with me, because that simple boundary led to a shocking confrontation at my doorstep 2 months later. Where are you watching from today? Hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of boundary setters. I'd love to know, have you ever had to stand your ground with family? Now let me take you back to where this all began. Ethan and I met during our sophomore year of college. We shared a literature class, and after 3 months of shy glances and accidental study sessions at the campus coffee shop, he finally asked me out. We dated for 3 years before he proposed, and we've been married for 5 wonderful years. We're both dedicated professionals. I've worked my way up to marketing executive at a digital agency, while Ethan thrives as a software engineer at a tech startup. We're not wealthy, but we're comfortable and deliberate with our finances. The Italy trip wasn't something we could casually afford. We saved for 18 months, cutting back on restaurants, new clothes, and even skipping a friend's destination bachelor party to make it happen. Italy wasn't a random choice for our anniversary. During our junior year, we both participated in a study abroad program in Florence. On our last evening there, overlooking the Arno River at sunset, Ethan got down on one knee and asked me to marry him. We'd always dreamed of returning to celebrate a significant anniversary, retracing our steps through the cobblestone streets where we'd fallen deeper in love. Our preparation went beyond just financial planning. We took Italian language classes every Tuesday night for 6 months. We researched and booked special experiences, a private cooking class in Florence, a sunset boat tour in Venice, and tickets to the opera in Rome. We saved specifically to dine at Michelin-starred restaurants, places we could never usually afford. This trip wasn't just a vacation. It was a meaningful pilgrimage to the place where our life together began. My relationship with my sister, Heather, has always been complicated. Growing up, she was the fragile, golden child. When she cried, because I wouldn't let her use my art supplies, our parents insisted I share. When she wanted the front seat in the car, I was told to be mature. When she forgot her science project, our parents stayed up all night helping her, while I was expected to handle my responsibilities independently. This pattern continued into our teenage years. I had to include her in my friend groups, even though she was difficult and dramatic. I was expected to drive her everywhere, even if it made me late for my own activities. When we both applied to the same college and I got a scholarship while she didn't, my parents asked if I would consider going somewhere else, so she wouldn't feel bad. In adulthood, the dynamic persisted. When Heather got engaged to Bradley, after dating for only 6 months, everyone was ecstatic. When I expressed concerns about their compatibility, I was chastised for being jealous. Their wedding consumed our family for a year, with endless pre-wedding events. I was maid of honor, which somehow translated to being her personal assistant for 12 months. Bradley, my brother-in-law, is pleasant enough but chronically disengaged. He travels frequently for his sales job, often leaving for days or weeks at a time. Even when he's home, he spends minimal time with the kids, claiming he needs to decompress after work. He's quick to agree with whatever Heather wants, perhaps to avoid conflict, which only reinforces her entitled behavior. Heather's parenting style can best be described as overwhelmed and underplanned. She had 3 children in 5 years, seemingly without considering the practical implications. Emma, the oldest at 7, is quiet and responsible, often tasked with helping with her younger siblings. Noah, 5, is high energy and requires constant supervision. Lily, just 2, is still in diapers and going through typical toddler tantrums. Heather constantly complains about being exhausted but rarely implements systems to make her life easier. Our parents, Eleanor and Richard, continue to enable Heather. They live 20 minutes from her and are regularly called for emergency childcare, grocery runs, or emotional support. When they try to establish boundaries, Heather tears up, talks about how impossible everything is, and they cave. They've canceled their own plans countless times to accommodate her last-minute needs. The pattern of last-minute babysitting requests has directly affected my life numerous times. Last December, just 2 days before Christmas, Heather called, claiming a Christmas shopping emergency because she hadn't started buying gifts. I ended up taking a sick day to watch the kids for 24 hours. In March, she decided the day before that she needed a birthday weekend and asked me to take the kids for 3 days. I had to reschedule 2 important client meetings. In July, she texted on a Monday that she needed a mental health break and dropped the kids off for 5 days, affecting a project deadline that nearly cost me a promotion. Each time I accommodated her, because that's what family does, according to my parents. Each time I promised myself I'd establish better boundaries next time. Each time the guilt and family pressure wore me down. The specific event that triggered this conflict was her best friend Melissa's destination wedding in Cancun. Heather had known about it for over a year. Melissa and Heather have been friends since high school, and Heather was to be a bridesmaid. Bradley was invited too, but apparently couldn't miss an important sales conference the same week. Instead of arranging childcare months in advance, Heather texted me exactly 3 weeks before our departure date for Italy. "Hey sis, need a huge favor. Can you watch the kids October 12th to 19th? Melissa's wedding in Cancun, and Brad has a conference. The kids are super excited for Auntie Miranda time. Thanks." The casual tone, the assumption of agreement, and the emotional manipulation by mentioning the kids' excitement all triggered something in me. For the first time, I replied with a firm but polite decline. "Sorry, Heather. Ethan and I will be in Italy for our anniversary that week. We've been planning this trip for over a year. I can help you look for a professional sitter if you'd like." I even offered alternatives. I researched reputable nanny services in her area and sent links. I reached out to our cousin Jennifer, who loves kids and might be available. I suggested she ask her in-laws, who live only an hour away and rarely see the grandchildren. I was trying to be helpful while maintaining my boundary. Little did I know this simple no would escalate into a family crisis of epic proportions. Heather's response came almost instantly. "What do you mean you can't? This is Melissa's wedding. It's been planned forever. You can go to Italy anytime." I stayed calm. "We've already paid for flights, accommodations, and special tours. Everything is non-refundable. This trip is really important to us. I'm happy to help you find alternatives, though." Her messages escalated. "I can't believe you're choosing a vacation over family. The kids will be heartbroken. Do you know how hard it is for me to get away? This is literally the first trip without kids in years." "I understand it's important," I replied, "but so is our anniversary trip that we've planned and saved for. I've sent you some childcare options that might work." "Whatever. I'll figure it out myself since clearly you don't care about helping family." Her final text was followed by silence, which I knew from experience was the calm before the storm. Sure enough, my phone rang that evening. Heather was in tears, her voice wavering dramatically as she detailed how devastating my refusal was. "I never get to do anything for myself," she sobbed. "Do you know how exhausting it is to be a mother of 3? When's the last time I got to go anywhere? And the one time I ask for help, my own sister abandons me." I tried explaining the significance of returning to Italy, where Ethan proposed. How we'd been saving specifically for this milestone. How we'd already invested thousands of non-refundable dollars. She dismissed it entirely. "It's just an anniversary," she scoffed. "You'll have plenty more. You can go next year. This is Melissa's only wedding." When I pointed out that this was actually Melissa's second wedding, she hung up. On me. The family involvement cascade began within hours. My mother called first, her voice coated in artificially patient tones, as if I were a stubborn child. "Miranda, sweetie, I think you need to reconsider this Italy trip. Your sister really needs you right now." When I stood firm, she switched tactics. "I raised you to put family first. I'm very disappointed in your selfishness. Sometimes we make sacrifices for the people we love." My father called next, skipping any pleasantries entirely. "Miranda, this nonsense has to stop. Your mother's upset, your sister's crying, and you're causing problems for everyone. Just reschedule the trip and help your sister." When I tried explaining, he cut me off. "Marriage is about compromise. If Ethan was a good husband, he'd understand family obligations. The extended family joined in soon after. Aunt Patricia texted, "Just heard about the situation with Heather. Really hope you'll support your sister during this important time." Cousin Jennifer, who I had once suggested as a babysitter, messaged, "Families need to stick together during important events. Maybe think about what's really important here." The following Sunday, we had our regular monthly family dinner at my parents' house. The tension was thick the moment we arrived. My mother barely hugged me. My father shook Ethan's hand with an unusually firm grip. Heather wouldn't meet my eyes. Throughout dinner, there were pointed comments. When I mentioned a work challenge, my mother snapped, "Well, at least you don't have 3 children to worry about." When Ethan brought up a friend's recent vacation, my father muttered, "Some people prioritize vacations over family obligations." After dessert, my mother suggested we have a family discussion in the living room. As we settled in, I felt like I was facing a firing squad. My parents sat across from us, Heather in the armchair, already dabbing at invisible tears. "We need to resolve this situation," my mother began. "Heather needs support for Melissa's wedding. Miranda, you and Ethan need to understand that family comes first." My father added, "Marriage means supporting your wife's family. Ethan, surely you understand the importance of helping out when needed." Ethan, bless him, spoke up calmly. "We completely understand family support, but this trip is a significant milestone for us. We've been planning it for over a year, and it's a meaningful investment both financially and emotionally. There are other childcare options available." "That's easy for you to say," Heather sniffled dramatically. "You don't know what it's like to be responsible for 3 kids. I never get a break. I never ask for anything. The one time I need help—" "That's not entirely accurate," I interjected, a surge of confidence rising. "I've watched the kids multiple times this year alone, often on short notice. I've rearranged work and personal plans repeatedly." "Oh, so now you're keeping score?" My mother's voice rose sharply. "That's not what family does, Miranda. We help without conditions or scorekeeping." The conversation spiraled. My father lectured about family loyalty. My mother shifted between guilt-inducing sighs and sharp rebukes. Heather's crying intensified, theatrically, whenever attention drifted away from her. The breaking point came when my mother shook her head and said, "I just don't understand how you became so heartless. We didn't raise you to be this selfish." That word, heartless, hit like a punch. And in that moment, I saw it all clearly. The lifelong pattern of inequity, guilt-tripping, and emotional manipulation. I stood up, surprising everyone. "I am not heartless for maintaining a simple boundary," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm not selfish for honoring a commitment to my husband and our marriage. What's selfish is expecting me to cancel an expensive, meaningful trip because you failed to plan childcare for an event you've known about for a year." I turned to Heather. "I love your children, and I'm happy to help when I can. But this pattern of last-minute emergencies has to stop. You've known about this wedding for months. You knew Bradley often has conflicts. You chose not to arrange childcare until 3 weeks before, and now it's everyone else's problem." Heather's face shifted from theatrical sadness to genuine shock. My parents sat stunned. I took Ethan's hand. "We're going to Italy as planned. I've already sent you several childcare options. I'm happy to help interview sitters before we leave, but I'm not canceling our anniversary trip." We left soon after, ignoring my mother's tearful accusations and my father's stern warnings about regrets. In the car, Ethan squeezed my trembling hand as I tried to process. "Are we wrong?" I whispered. "Am I being selfish?" "Absolutely not," he assured me. "Healthy families respect boundaries. Healthy families don't demand sacrifices from only certain members. You stood up not just for a trip, but for fairness in your family." Nodded, feeling both liberated and terrified. "They're not going to let this go easily." "Probably not," he agreed, "but we'll handle whatever comes next. Together." I had no idea then just how dramatic whatever comes next would prove to be. The last week before our departure was a barrage of emotional warfare. My phone buzzed constantly with messages designed to break my resolve. My mother texted daily, variations of, I've never been so disappointed. I raised you better than this. I can't sleep thinking about your poor sister. What will I tell people when they ask why you weren't there for family? Heather's approach was more dramatic. Thanks for ruining Melissa's wedding for me. The kids keep asking why Auntie Miranda doesn't love them anymore. I'll remember this next time. You need something. Brad's family thinks I'm making this up because they can't believe a sister would be so uncaring. My father's messages were fewer, but stern. Your behavior is unacceptable. This isn't how we raised you. A vacation is temporary, but family damage lasts forever. The day before our departure, my parents showed up unannounced at our condo. My mother's eyes were puffy from what appeared to be strategic crying, while my father wore his serious business expression. We need to talk sense into you before it's too late, my mother announced as they pushed past me into the living room. Your sister is devastated. She might have to miss her best friend's wedding because of your stubbornness. There are multiple childcare options available, I reminded them. I've sent several recommendations for professional services, suggested family members who might help, and even offered to help interview sitters before we leave. That's not the same as family, my father countered. Those people are strangers. Your sister trusts you with her children. The children barely know Bradley's parents either since he never takes them to visit, my mother added, and we can't do it because your father's back has been acting up. This was the first I'd heard of any back problems. The conversation grew increasingly heated. When my mother suggested we just postpone Italy until next year, Ethan finally intervened. With all due respect, he said firmly, we're not changing our plans. We've invested thousands of dollars and over a year of planning. We're celebrating our marriage, which should also be important to you as family. My parents exchanged looks of disbelief, clearly unaccustomed to such direct opposition. They left shortly after, my mother pausing dramatically at the door to deliver her parting shot. You'll regret this decision. Family remembers who shows up when it matters. Departure day brought a mixture of anxiety and excitement. I checked my phone compulsively before boarding, half expecting some new family emergency designed to stop us. Ethan gently took my phone at the gate. For the next 10 days, he said, let's focus on us. Whatever's happening back home will still be there when we return. There are adults who will figure it out. As our plane lifted off, I felt a weight lifting too. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe without the pressure of family disapproval. Constricting my chest, arriving in Rome was surreal. The ancient city welcomed us with warm autumn sunshine and the intoxicating scent of espresso and fresh bread. Our first evening, dining at a tiny trattoria tucked down a cobblestone alley, I found myself checking my phone between courses. 5. Missed calls and a dozen text messages. What if there's a real emergency? I worried aloud. If there's a genuine emergency, they'll call the hotel, Ethan reasoned. Let's silence the family notifications for now. We can check once a day, but not let it consume our trip. I agreed reluctantly, creating a separate notification setting for family contacts. The decision proved liberating. Florence embraced us with artistic splendor and culinary delights. We visited the Uffizi Gallery hand in hand, marveling at Botticelli's Birth of Venus, just as we had during our study abroad program. We took a cooking class, laughing as we attempted to master pasta from scratch. We climbed to the top of the Duomo, breathless from both exertion and the spectacular view. Each evening, I performed my ritual check of family messages. They ranged from guilt-inducing to passively threatening, but nothing constituted an actual emergency. I responded to none of them. In Venice, we celebrated our actual anniversary with dinner at a restaurant overlooking the Grand Canal. As gondolas glided by in the moonlight, Ethan raised his glass of Prosecco. To 5 years with my best friend and partner, he toasted, and to many more years of supporting each other's boundaries and dreams. Over a decadent tiramisu, we had a deep conversation about family dynamics. Ethan's family, while not perfect, operated with mutual respect. His parents never demanded his siblings drop everything for last-minute requests. They planned family gatherings with consideration for everyone's schedules. They celebrated each other's personal milestones alongside family events. Your family loves you, he said gently, but they've developed unhealthy patterns. Your sister learned she could get her way through dramatics. Your parents learned to prioritize temporary peace over fairness, and you learned that your needs matter less than keeping others happy. I felt tears welling up, not from sadness but recognition. I don't want to lose them, I admitted, but I can't keep being the only one who sacrifices. Setting boundaries isn't about rejection, he assured me. It's about teaching people how to treat you. Some will adapt, others might not. But you deserve relationships based on mutual respect, not obligation and guilt. That conversation became the emotional centerpiece of our trip. As we explored Venetian canals, sampled gelato flavors, and admired ancient architecture, I felt a growing certainty that I'd made the right decision. Our marriage deserved this celebration. My mental health needed this boundary. Still, as our return flight approached, dread crept back in. What fresh drama awaited us at home? How would I handle the inevitable confrontation? The answer came sooner than expected. Our mailbox overflowed with passive-aggressive notes from my mother, detailing the family crisis I'd caused. My voicemail contained messages ranging from Heather's tearful recriminations to my father's stern lectures. Through the grapevine of mutual friends, I learned that Heather had ultimately hired an expensive last-minute nanny service, allowing her to attend the wedding. Her social media was filled with beach photos and wedding festivities, interspersed with vague posts about learning who's really there for you, and some people choosing vacations over family. The toxicity was overwhelming. After a day of sorting through the accumulated communications, I made a decision. I needed space. Not forever, but enough to regain perspective and emotional equilibrium. I sent a brief, clear email to my parents and sister. I need some time and space to process recent events. I love you all, but the pressure, guilt, and manipulation around our anniversary trip have been hurtful and excessive. I'll be taking a 2-month break from family contact to focus on my well-being. Please respect this boundary. I'll reach out when I'm ready to reconnect. Then I set up email filters, muted family text threads, and blocked social media notifications. I informed extended family members I trusted about the situation, not to recruit allies, but to prevent misunderstandings. The silence began not as punishment, but as protection, for my peace, my marriage, and ultimately for the possibility of healthier family relationships in the future. The first week of silence was the hardest. I'd wake up reaching for my phone, half expecting to check family messages before remembering my boundary. Guilt nodded at me. Was I being cruel? Overreacting? Would this irreparably damage our relationships? Simultaneously, I felt a novel sense of relief. The constant pressure had lifted. The perpetual background anxiety of wondering when Heather's next emergency would disrupt my life had vanished. My shoulders unclenched. The stress-induced headaches that had become my constant companion faded away. Of course, my family didn't simply respect my clearly stated boundary. My mother showed up at my workplace unannounced 2 weeks into the silence, creating an awkward scene in the reception area. "I just need 5 minutes," she insisted tearfully to the uncomfortable receptionist. Fortunately, I was in a client meeting, and my colleague Vanessa intercepted her, explaining I was unavailable. Later, my mother left a voicemail claiming she'd been humiliated by being turned away from her own daughter's office. My father took a different approach, sending stern emails with subject lines like family loyalty and responsibilities of adulthood. Each message reinforced that I was the problem, that my behavior was unprecedented and disrespectful, and that the family was deeply wounded by my continued selfishness. Heather's strategy was more public. Her social media became a theater of martyrdom, with vague posts clearly designed for maximum sympathy. Single parenting again while hubby travels. For work. Some people don't understand how hard this is. Grateful for real family who show up when needed. She never named me directly, but mutual friends confirmed she was freely discussing my abandonment with anyone who would listen. Extended family members became unwitting messengers. Aunt Patricia called to just check in, but quickly pivoted to how concerned everyone was about my situation. Uncle Robert texted that my parents seemed unusually upset and wondered if I'd consider extending an olive branch for family harmony. Throughout this challenging period, my support system proved invaluable. My friends validated that my boundary was reasonable and necessary. Ethan remained my steadfast ally, never once questioning our decision to prioritize our anniversary trip. He screened calls, helped draft responses to flying monkeys, and helped me through moments of doubt. I also started therapy, something I'd considered for years but always dismissed as unnecessary. My therapist, Dr. Cantrell, helped me identify the unhealthy family patterns I'd normalized. She introduced concepts like emotional incest, when a parent relies on a child for emotional support, and parentification, when a child is forced to take on adult responsibilities, which illuminated my childhood experiences with painful clarity. A support group for adults navigating family boundary issues provided additional perspective. Hearing others' similar experiences reassured me I wasn't crazy or cruel for establishing limits. The group recommended books like Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend and Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Gibson, which became my nightly reading. Through social media monitoring by mutual friends, I learned about Heather's childcare situation. She'd ultimately borrowed money from our parents to hire a professional nanny service for the wedding week. Apparently, the cost was substantially higher due to the last-minute booking. She complained constantly about the expense online, despite posting lavish photos from Cancun, beachfront cocktails, spa treatments, and shopping excursions. She crafted an elaborate narrative about her sacrifice to attend the wedding. The financial strain, the worry about leaving her children with strangers, the stress of arranging everything alone. The irony that she could have avoided much of this by planning ahead seemed lost on everyone, including herself. Several significant events occurred during my 2-month silence. My 35th birthday passed without contact from my family. The first time in my life without my mother's traditional morning call. Instead of feeling sad, I celebrated intimately with Ethan and close friends, enjoying freedom from family drama. At work, I received a promotion I'd been working toward for months. Without the constant interruptions of family emergencies and the emotional drain of Heather's crisis, I'd been able to focus fully on an important client project that caught executive attention. Thanksgiving approached, traditionally spent with my family. This year, we accepted an invitation to join Ethan's family in Connecticut instead. His parents welcomed us warmly. His siblings engaged us in conversations about our interests and accomplishments. No one guilt-tripped anyone about anything. The contrast was illuminating. As Christmas loomed on the horizon, I sensed increasing pressure in the few family communications that reached me. Holiday traditions were being wielded as weapons of guilt. My mother sent a card with a pointed message about empty chairs at the family table. My father emailed about putting differences aside for the sake of the season. Throughout these 2 months, I experienced significant personal growth. My people-pleasing tendencies diminished, not just with family, but in all relationships. I found myself setting appropriate boundaries at work, with friends, even with strangers. I slept better. My anxiety decreased. I made decisions more confidently without the paralyzing worry about others' approval. The final weeks before the confrontation showed subtle signs of escalating family frustration. The tone of messages shifted from guilt-inducing to angry. The frequency of attempted contacts increased. Mutual friends reported my family seemed increasingly determined to break through my silence. I began preparing for eventual reconnection. Working with my therapist to develop scripts for difficult conversations, I imagined different scenarios, practiced responses, and clarified my non-negotiable boundaries. I planned to reach out after the holidays, hoping the emotional intensity might diminish by then. What I never anticipated was that my family would take matters into their own hands in such a dramatic fashion. The Saturday morning that changed everything began peacefully enough. Ethan and I lounged in our pajamas, sipping coffee and planning a relaxing weekend. Maybe a movie that evening, Sunday brunch with friends, perhaps tackling the guest bedroom organization project we'd been postponing. The aggressive doorbell ringing shattered our tranquility. Not a casual ring, but repeated, insistent pressing, accompanied by sharp knocking. Startled, I approached the door cautiously and peered through the peephole. My heart dropped. Standing on our doorstep were Heather, looking dramatically disheveled, and our parents, wearing identical expressions of grim determination. My mother clutched her purse like a weapon. My father stood with arms crossed. Heather held what appeared to be a manila folder. It's my family, I whispered to Ethan, who had appeared behind me, concern etched on his face. You don't have to open it if you're not ready, he reminded me. After a deep breath, I unlocked the door but kept the security chain engaged, opening it just enough to speak through the gap. This is unexpected, I said, aiming for calm despite my racing heart. We need to talk, my father announced in his boardroom voice. Remove this chain immediately. We respected your little timeout, my mother added, her tone brittle. But this has gone on long enough. I closed the door briefly, exchanged a glance with Ethan, and removed the chain. As I reopened the door, my family pushed past me into our living room without waiting for an invitation. 2 months of ignoring your family, my mother began without preamble. Do you have any idea what you've put us through? I sent an email explaining I needed space, I reminded her. I was planning to reach out after the holidays. How generous? Heather snapped, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Well, this couldn't wait. She thrust the manila folder toward me. This is your fault, so you need to fix it. Confused, I opened the folder to find a stack of receipts and a typed invoice. The header read, Professional Childcare Services. The total was highlighted in yellow, $2,150. What is this? I asked, though I was beginning to understand. That, Heather announced triumphantly, is what your selfishness cost us. The professional childcare I had to hire last minute because you refused to help with the kids for Melissa's wedding. I stared at the itemized list in disbelief. The nanny service had charged premium rates for the last-minute booking, plus additional fees for evening hours and transportation. You want me to pay for the childcare you arranged for your children? I clarified, my voice steady. Surely, I must be misunderstanding. This expense only existed because of you, my father explained, as if to a slow child. If you had done your duty as an aunt and sister, this service wouldn't have been necessary. We had to borrow money to cover it, my mother added. With the holidays coming and 3 children to buy presents for, Heather can't possibly absorb this unexpected expense. Ethan had moved to stand beside me, his presence steadying. Let me make sure I understand, he said, his calm voice contrasting with the charged atmosphere. You're asking us to pay nearly $3,000 for childcare for children that aren't ours, for an event that wasn't ours, because we kept our anniversary plans? Plans can be changed, my mother said dismissively. Family obligations can't. This isn't a negotiation, my father added. It's simple responsibility for the consequences of your actions. Heather's voice cracked with practiced emotion. Do you know how hard it's been? The financial strain has been unbearable. We're still paying off the credit card. Bill, the kids' Christmas might be affected, all because you couldn't help for 1 week. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. I noticed our neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, peering curiously through her kitchen window at the raised voices. Heather had shifted to theatrical sobbing, her volume increasing strategically. Let's keep our voices down, I suggested, gesturing toward the window. The neighbors can hear. I don't care who hears. Heather's voice rose further. Everyone should know how you've treated your family, your own sister, your nieces and nephew. Something in me snapped. The weeks of guilt, the years of manipulation, the lifetime of uneven expectations. It all crystallized into perfect clarity. No, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I will not be paying this bill. The stunned silence was momentarily satisfying. Your sister needs help, my mother finally sputtered. My sister needs to plan childcare for her own children, I corrected. My sister needs to stop creating emergencies from foreseeable events. My sister needs to respect other people's time, money, and commitments. I turned to Heather directly. You knew about this wedding for over a year. You knew Bradley often has conflicts. You chose not to arrange childcare until 3 weeks before, then expected me to cancel an expensive international trip. When I refused, you guilt manipulated and recruited the entire family to pressure me. Now you want me to pay for a service for your children? Absolutely not. Heather's face flushed with anger. You've changed. You used to care about family. I still care about family, I replied. But I've realized healthy family relationships include respect, boundaries, and reciprocity. They don't demand sacrifice from only certain members. They don't punish people for prioritizing their marriages. And they certainly don't show up unannounced with invoices for other people's parental responsibilities. My parents exchanged shocked glances, clearly unprepared for this version of their typically compliant daughter. Ethan stepped forward. I think it's time for you to leave. Miranda has been clear about needing space, and this ambush isn't productive for anyone. We're not leaving until this is resolved, my father insisted. It is resolved, I said firmly. I'm not paying the bill. I'm not apologizing for keeping our anniversary plans. And I'm not accepting blame for Heather's lack of planning. My mother's face hardened. Is this what your marriage has done to you? Turned you against your own family? My marriage has shown me what healthy love and support look like, I countered. It's given me the courage to expect better from all my relationships, including family ones. Heather stormed toward the door, pausing for maximum dramatic effect. Don't expect to see the kids anytime soon. I won't expose them to someone who cares so little about family. My parents followed, my father issuing a parting ultimatum. This isn't over. That bill needs to be paid. You created this situation. As the door closed behind them, I heard Heather's voice raised for the benefit of any listening neighbors. I can't believe my own sister would do this to me after everything I've been through. They lingered in the driveway for several minutes, perhaps expecting me to rush out with apologies or a checkbook. Eventually, they drove away, leaving nothing but tire marks on our driveway and emotional scars on my heart. The moment they left, my carefully held composure shattered. I collapsed onto the couch, trembling with a mix of adrenaline and emotion. Ethan sat beside me, pulling me close as tears slipped down my cheeks. You did brilliantly, he whispered into my hair. I'm so proud of you for standing your ground. I barely managed to whisper, they hate me. But Ethan gently corrected me. They don't hate you. They're just facing the consequences of their behavior for maybe the first time. It's uncomfortable for them, so they're lashing out. A soft knock at the door startled us. Ethan opened it to find Mrs. Jenkins, our kind elderly neighbor, holding a plate of cookies. I thought you might need these after such a difficult conversation, she said apologetically. Her simple kindness broke through my last defenses. As Ethan thanked her, I wiped away tears, heartbroken but also strengthened by the realization that sometimes strangers show more empathy than family. The confrontation had been painful beyond words, but also clarifying. There was no going back to old patterns. From now on, things had to be different, healthier, more balanced. Whether my family could adapt remained uncertain. In the hours afterward, Ethan and I processed everything, recording the demands, accusations, and threats. While it was fresh, documenting it made it feel less overwhelming, turning a chaotic emotional ambush into a clear series of events. I called my therapist for an emergency session. Dr. Canrell helped me untangle the mess of emotions: anger at their audacity, grief for lost family connections, fear of escalation, and beneath it all, a surprising relief. The confrontation proved I wasn't overreacting. Their behavior was so unreasonable, it validated my boundaries completely. With Dr. Canrell's guidance, I developed a communication plan. No immediate responses, allowing emotions to cool first. When I did respond, it would be with a clear, comprehensive message to the whole family, setting out my perspective and boundaries. A week later, I sent that email. I explained why unannounced visits demanding money were unacceptable, that I wouldn't pay Heather's childcare bills, and that last-minute requests had to stop. I emphasized the need for respect and consideration, gave clear rules about visits, childcare notice, and no guilt-tripping or silent treatment. I said I'd limit contact if boundaries were ignored and offered family mediation. The response was swift and mixed. My mom said they needed time to process, Dad complained behind my back, and Heather posted passive-aggressive messages online. But surprisingly, some extended family members sided with me, admitting they'd seen Heather's entitlement but stayed quiet for peace's sake. Weeks later, Heather's husband Bradley called, apologizing and revealing that Heather had exaggerated their financial troubles. They'd bought a new SUV and planned a Disney trip. He admitted the money demand was punishment, not need. This shifted my perspective. It wasn't desperation, it was emotional manipulation. 2 months after, my mother sent a half-hearted apology. My father suggested a family meeting. I agreed, but only with conditions: a neutral place, a professional mediator, and respectful communication rules. To my surprise, they agreed. The session was tough but productive. We shared feelings and acknowledged unhealthy patterns. Heather's learned helplessness, my parents' enabling, my overcompensation, and the emotional manipulation. We agreed on monthly family dinners, childcare requests in writing with notice, and encouragement for Heather's independence. Change was slow and imperfect. Heather tested boundaries, parents slipped back, but gradually things improved. Heather found a babysitter, my parents set their own boundaries, and Bradley became more involved. I built more balanced relationships with my nieces and nephews, shifting from emergency babysitter to intentional quality time. 6 months after that doorstep confrontation, we had a new normal. Not perfect, but healthier. My family hadn't transformed overnight, but they were learning to respect boundaries. More importantly, I had changed. I no longer dissolved into guilt or sacrificed my needs to please others. I stood firm in my worth. The journey continues, with ups and downs. But the fundamental shift has created a sustainable reality where love doesn't demand self-erasure, where support isn't sacrifice, and where family means mutual respect, not just shared blood.